Is reclusive way of life a must for spiritual progress? Well, the spiritual progress is an internal affair. It's something that happens within, something that happens on the level of our relationship with our innermost self. How does that fits in with the overall relationships we have in life? With the relationship with, let's say, we have in the family, to our nearest and dearest, relationship to the environment we have, the relationship we have to the collective whole. There are basically two types of people. People who are reclusive by nature and those who are very much of social beings. And obviously it's not all black and white. We all have partly a reclusive side to us. We all want to go and, retreat from time to time, to be alone, to be in a silence, to be left alone. And we want to socialize, we want to interact. So how does this whole thing relate to the spiritual practice? Well, essentially, maybe some people are more predispositioned to progress when they are alone, and others need to have the stability of family life. They need to have something which basically keeps them attuned and keeps them connected to the world as they know it. And both ways are absolutely there's nothing that can be said that one way is more preferable than the other. Maybe in the past, maybe if sometimes, in certain cultures, it was easier to attain self-realized state when people retreated into the mountains, into the monasteries, when they lived in kind of secluded communities or even completely on their own. But in the day and age we live now, spirituality is no longer kind of luxury of a few. It's more of a necessity. I call it a mental hygiene. So you may not have the aspiration to become a Buddha, although it would help. It is still very important to wash ourselves with that purifying waters of self-inquiry, of silence, because our life becoming increasingly polluted with activity. The field of activity itself is increasingly polluted with diverse notions, concepts, thoughts, vibrations. We literally live in that thick mass of collective consciousness which is no longer pure. The demographical explosion alone shows us that there is this, tendency that we are all bombarding each other, we are all kind of receiving information and giving out information, and we constantly rotate in that soup. It is very important to find a place and time so that you can renew yourself, regenerate yourself. So you don't even need to call it spiritual practice if you don't want to. It's the type of the psychological mental hygiene. Just as you brush your teeth in the morning, you take a shower, in the same way people need to practice silence from time to time, preferably on a daily basis, preferably twice a day, because especially those of us who live in the cities, in large communities, there's so much for the nervous system to digest. There's so much to basically process. There's so much information to process alone. Then there is a constant chance, a constant possibility for the stress to develop and to go deeper and deeper into our nervous system. So householder and the recluse are today finding themselves in a very similar situation. The gap between them is no longer as profound as it used to be. You have to go really high up in the Himalayas to be away from it all. Because if you even go somewhere, let's say in the middle of France, in one of those monasteries, you have motorways near you, you have towns, traffic, you have pollution, mental pollution, environmental pollution, you have it all there. Where are you going to go? On an island? Well, Ibiza is supposed to be that kind of amazing island, but one side of Ibiza is like a hedonistic hangout with all the, rock and roll of it, which is fine, and another side is where people practice yoga. But it's all happening on one island, so all these vibrations, they kind of mix and match. How much benefit will that retreat be if you are within such a close proximity to all the diverse activities? So the bottom line is that spiritual practice today is no longer a domain of a recluse. So one can practice it anywhere, in any setup, as long as you find yourself a moment, as long as you find yourself a place where you can just sit down, shut your eyes, and do your practice according to your, chosen tradition and methodology. Additionally to that, it is important to know that consciousness is omnipresent. And it absolutely doesn't matter what you are and what you do, where you are, geographically and otherwise. Because consciousness is no local. Consciousness permeates all creation. And because of that, the possibility for consciousness to know itself is unlimited. It is not subjected to place and time. It could happen to anyone at any time. And that is exactly what's happening today. People are popping out of their own contracted selves everywhere, anywhere in the world. So I'd say that there's no need to be a recluse, It's just the way to combine these practices. And then again, being a recluse is also deprives you from the possibility of finding out the strength of your silence. How would you know where you are? How would you know the depth of your contentment if you haven't tried it on the rocky shores of the life itself? If you haven't actually went into the world and tested it, then you wouldn't know. Because the proof of one's silence can only be found in the noise of this world. And the family life is a perfect condition. It's that precise karmic noise,